Okay, hey everybody, welcome to this evening stream. So this evening we're going to be continuing with our own Game Jam submission. So obviously it's Game Jam week. We are running our Mechanical Revolution Game Jam with the theme Gearing Up. Now we've seen some really incredible stuff over on Discord, so if you are watching this live or you're watching this on demand, do make sure you head over to our Discord and join in the chat over in our Game Jam channel. So that's discord.gg/Crayta, or if you're on Twitch you can do Discord and that'll throw up the link for you to come over and join. But yes, it's really incredible stuff. We've seen some really cool sneak peeks and a lot of conversation around kind of game ideas, discussing what sort of things people are doing. And again, I'm really excited to see kind of all the hard work everyone's putting in. Can't wait to see that sort of pay off next week. Obviously, submissions will end this Sunday evening or early Monday morning. So you've got plenty of time yet. I've just reminded that we are doing a play along stream tomorrow night, and that'll be AJ with the usual crew. And there is an invitation there to have your games played. So I'm kind of hoping tonight I'm going to get to a point with our own submission where perhaps it's publishable, where people can at least muck around and play the mechanics. It's probably not going to have much of a loop and a game working system, but it is going to have a point where we can kind of see where it's going, see how it's looking. So it's just me tonight. It's just a pretty quiet one by myself. Figured I didn't want to have anyone else having to sort of dance around while I'm doing a lot of previewing, a lot of testing, a lot of debugging. So a little bit kind of game dev heavy tonight again. But it's always nice to jump in and do some kind of proper game dev stuff. So I'm already here in the editor. Let's just drop out of here. I'll just show you what we've got. So the idea of the game I've got, so again, as I say, the theme is gearing up, which is quite a nice theme. I think we've kind of hopefully left it quite open so players can really interpret that however they want. There's quite a lot of ways, quite a lot of things you can do with that as a theme. My interpretation of it was pretty literal, so I'm thinking of a game here where players have to stack gears. So I'm calling it gear stack or something like that. The idea is players will drop a bit like a crane game. You'll drop gears and you've got to try and make as high a tower of gears as you can, hence gearing up. So what we got to yesterday was pretty kind of straightforward. We got a lot of the mechanics down. I fixed a little issue, which is why the cog wasn't appearing. Where I'm up to now is I'm getting it to drop. It doesn't seem to be dropping for me, but the way it works is players will come up to their control and then they can move crane to position, probably speed it up, and then ideally you'd hit a button and that cog would drop, and then the magnet would go off and retrieve another gear. So that's kind of the way that's going to work. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of a silly-ish puzzle game. I was thinking about the way that it was going to work kind of competitively, and I'm thinking rather than it being like a round-based thing, to make it a bit more straightforward, probably going to go for like a drop in, drop out type thing. So there'll be play areas you can go and play on, and then the idea is it's just you play for as long as you want, see how high the tower can be, and we'll just record whoever gets the highest tower. So hopefully tonight we'll get that sort of stuff going. We'll kind of be able to record how high a tower was made. But first let's have a look at this reason as to why it's not dropping. So firstly, let's get a print in here. Zoom this in a bit. I'm going to get a print in here, just double check to see if this is actually being called. Now again, as I mentioned yesterday several times, given that this is a kind of a game jam, this isn't an idea I particularly thought out too much. So a lot of this is just kind of on the fly code, and that's a really nice thing with Crayta is you've kind of got that freedom to really dive into a project. It's nice to have some idea of the direction you're going, but in terms of the actual technical planning, which a lot of game dev projects would normally spend a lot of time planning ahead of time, it's kind of nice in Crayta that you can just throw the code together a bit more. You can kind of really prototype stuff super quick, and that's kind of one of the beauties of actually doing game jams in Crayta. And then obviously once the game jam's done, we've got all the time after that to really refine the game, but we're kind of forcing ourselves in this 7-day period to just kind of get some mechanics going and just kind of play with it and see what we can do. So let's just see if we get any drop gear. Now I notice there's a lot of prints coming from something. I guess that's from in here. Yeah, so on tick I'm printing, and obviously I don't really want to be printing something on tick, which means every frame, because you're just going to get thousands and thousands of prints. So what we should see now when I play is an empty console. That's good, so I'm not getting that sort of spam. So if I press space now, I'm not seeing my drop gear call. So let's see why that might be the case. Okay, so we've got a player control script. So this is the way I often like to handle kind of player input, is have a specific function, sorry, a specific script on the player that will catch all of the inputs, and then from there we can kind of tell the relevant things what to do based on that input. So if button jump, train control panel entity, send scripts on drop gear. Aha, so that'll be the first problem. It's not called the right thing. Oh wait, no. Doesn't go to there, it goes to here. On drop gear. And that should send drop gear through. So let's see if we get to here. And then this should in theory be calling through to this script. Okay, so we've got our magnet assigned. Okay, that all looks good to me. Let's see if we're getting that first call, and then if not, there's a problem with what I've got in the control script on the player. Okay. I'm not seeing that either, right. But in here, there we go. Button name. I've just called it button here. So simple. Once you kind of step through it, it's always something super simple like that. But let's see. So we should see this drop. Rather thrown, but I think I know why that is. Because I'm dropping it, and then I'm spawning another one almost literally straight away. So that's where our reset comes in. Okay, so stacking. Firstly, obviously the gears are wrong, the wrong rotation. It's going to be pretty difficult to get any sort of stack. Oh, that's not bad. That's a. Keep pressing space. Okay, that's really quite pleasing actually. Yeah, that's fun. I'm wondering if I need some sort of limit on how many gears a player can spawn. Or maybe like I need some way to detect if a tower falls, and if it does, you can kind of then wipe that tower. Okay, cool. That's working quite nicely. So first thing to address is that initial rotation, which should be doable here. So let's try, let's just try spawning it at a different rotation. Not that one. Where just the brute force trial and error is normally the quickest way. And again, another power of Crayta is the speed of iteration. So instead of having to go back and work out, you know, which rotation, I can just try the numbers. I can get in and out of preview dead fast. Okay. So it's launching them down. Okay, so that's partly down to the fact that it's probably colliding with the one that spawns straight away. So let's fix that problem firstly. So I probably want to here, where I'm just for now debug creating a new one. Let's just actually do this in a schedule. So by doing this in a schedule, that's just going to give you a chance to essentially kind of pause for a second. Oops. Okay, so then here I can essentially say, let's just wait 3 seconds, an arbitrary number for now. We're going to wait 3 seconds before the next one appears. So hopefully we should be dropping this one. It should drop fairly nicely. If not, I suspect what I need to do is actually increase the weight of the gear to kind of stop it from being so kind of quick to spin. Okay. Oh, okay, so we've got a bit of natural bounce there. That's pretty cool. So essentially the game is the magnet would have to move, and I've got to try and then guess getting the magnet right back on top to get a decent stack. I'm curious to know how high this will go. Okay, there's a little bit of wobble there. Oh, this is really quite cool. Oh, I don't know if you can see this on the stream, but it's really kind of just slowly rotating. Got some, I think the physics, because everything is still physically enabled. I'm not stopping the physics. Everything is, I think it's starting to build up its own natural momentum. I'm half inclined to see what's going to happen here, because it's just quite an interesting development. I wonder if something I might need to do is disable physics after it's settled. Although you kind of want the collapsing tower effect, right? Right, let's go for one more. It's got some really crazy movement going now. Oh, here we go, here we go. Nice, okay. I mean, that looks pretty cool, right? I mean, the physics is behaving. I think it's a nice shape for the physics engine to deal with. It's not like a ball that's trying to roll around or anything. It's a pretty solid shape for the physics to handle, which is, you know, it's quite a nice kind of use case for the physics that we have incorporated. And again, you know, it's just a one button click. Okay, cool. Right, that's enough fun with that. So, okay, so let's say we've got that. What we probably need next is a way that it would actually have to reset on. So let's think about that. So we kind of need it to come back to a certain point to almost fetch the next thing. And during that time, the player shouldn't be able to control it. So what's the best thing there? It's probably just to play a timeline. It's going to need to calculate from where it is how to get back to a certain place. So let's imagine we've got some sort of retrieval point here. So probably want two locators, and it's going to slide to the side and then slide down. That might be quite a nice motion. Or I guess for now, just to keep it easy, let's just place one. So again, game jam rules, you know, always go for the easier option. Try not to overcomplicate things. Get something working, and then you can start to incorporate the more complicated things as you go. Hey, Alex White. Okay, so 1200. So 1200. Let's make sure. There. And this is my. I call this crane start point. Okay, so this is the point in space where I want the crane to come back to every time. Yeah, so the crane magnet can know this. Yeah, okay, so if this knows where to go, then it can tell the main control script essentially what is kind of when the player can and can't move it. Alex White, what are you building? So what we're building here is our game jam entry, and it's kind of like a reverse crane game. So the idea is you've got kind of left, right, up, down motion to move the crane, and you're trying to drop cogs, and you're trying to build as big a tower as you can against other players in like a drop in, drop out. So just over time, whoever creates the highest tower can win. The one thing I just thought of that I'm going to need to consider here is, what if the tower gets higher than the magnet? I'm going to need some way for the magnet to kind of adjust its height and the camera to follow it. You know, I don't know how high towers are going to get, but someone could make one, you know, 3,000 units high. I'd need to kind of have a way to move with that. So it's an edge case to bear in mind, I guess. Okay, so let's write the logic for this reset. So well, here's the thought. Do I even need... Probably don't even need this. Because actually I can just put this in the right position and then log that position. That's a bit more flexible because then it'll always... I don't need to update kind of two different things. So let's go with that. Okay, so there's my crane. So that's saying that's where it starts. These nice round numbers. So 1500 by negative 1000. Okay. So when we start the server, let's capture its start position. Okay, so now we've got that vector saved, we can essentially then come back to that whenever we want to. So here is where we run our reset. So we need a timeline here that's going to move the crane back. So stop player control, do that. So obviously the crane can be anywhere, so I'd need to work out where to move to, unless this is probably a better use case for alter position. So self get entity alter position. So here we can essentially provide where it is, where it needs to be, and how long it should take. So the how long it should take is what I'm going to need to be variable, because if it's really close or really far, obviously if I just set 5 seconds, when it's really close it's going to go really slow and take 5 seconds. If it's really far, that 5 seconds will move much quicker. But the time's going to have to depend on the distance. And that's something we can do fairly straightforward in a moment. So let's do this one first. So what we want to do is from position, that's going to be its current position. So from where it currently is to the start position. Okay, and for now we're just going to say a variable called time. So local time equals 0. Let's say, obviously that's going to be different. Okay. So this knows how fast the crane could move. This is where the player moves it. I'm starting to think that the reset should actually belong in the other script. I think it'll just be a little bit easier with what I need to do. Yeah, no, I think let's move it in here. We can write a new function. We'll call this reset crane. And again, we'll do this in a schedule because we're going to want to pause the execution because we kind of need to wait for it to get to the end before we do things. So we're going to have a wait in there somewhere. Okay, so stop the player control. Again, that's going to be easier from this script because this script has the owner, so it knows who owns this script. It knows which player is using it. The entity isn't going to be itself, but it is going to be something that we can access here. So it's going to be the crane entity. So we can tell that entity through the properties, okay, this is what you need to do. We need to update the start position. So instead of that coming from this script, that can come from here. Just rename it to make it a bit clearer. So crane start position is, again, using the property crane entity. So we're going to get that through the properties. So again, really useful if you are kind of linking entities, is just going through the properties. You can do, anything you would do on an entity by a self get entity, you can do that through the properties quite easily as well, just by having the type of entity. Okay, so I've got my crane start position. So that is going to be much smaller. That's here. In my time. So how am I going to calculate my time? Well, the time should be relative to the distance of where it currently is to where it needs to be. So we can work out that distance. Quite straightforward. Let's just do another variable here. So distance to travel. Okay, and the way that the distance to travel works in maths, in sort of 3D maths, is essentially just taking one vector away from another, gives you the vector between the 2 points. And then the length of that vector is the distance. So, might sound quite confusing, but think of a vector as two positions. So if you've got position 1 and position 2, okay, if you subtract those two from each other, that gives you essentially the vector or the line between those 2 points. And then the distance, the length of that line, is how far away they are from each other. So what we can do here to work out the distance is vector.distance, okay? And then we can see there from the API, we just pass in the two vectors, and it's going to do essentially the subtraction and the maths for us. If you need to know the distance between 2 points, really simple API call. So vector 1 will be the current position. So self.properties, crane entity, get position, subtract the self.crane start position. Okay, so my time, the amount I need to travel is going to be my distance to travel times my self.properties crane move speed, or divided. This is where I'm going to speed equals distance over time. Yeah. So we can tweak the maths, we can tweak it, but that's the general point. We can calculate that time, because as I say, it's going to be relative to how far we need to go. So we also now need to wait by that amount of time, and then spawn new gear. Go here. Okay, so for spawning new gear, we've got a function already on our magnet. Remove that from a schedule, so we no longer need this to be any sort of timed element. We just drop the gear and move on. Reset. Or do we need to reset? No, we don't need to tell it to reset, because this is going to happen sort of instantly within the frame. Here, this script, because we've come through this script, we know it's happened. So we need to drop gear and then self reset crane. Okay, so we can tell the thing to drop, and then we can reset the crane. Probably want to pause for say like a second at the start. So wait for a second, move, wait, spawn the gear. Okay, so self.properties, crane entity center scripts. So we're going to center the scripts on the magnet, and we're going to say create new gear. Restore player movement. Okay, how can we do that in this script easily? Can we? The player control script is always passing in what to do based on if they're at a control panel. They're still at a control panel, so the inputs are still going to come through. But I'm wondering if I just need a flag in here that basically is resetting, and essentially if it's resetting, just ignore whatever the player's saying. So it is resetting. On Cray move, so here, if not resetting, so if we're not resetting, then we're happy to accept the inputs. Yeah, so if we're not resetting, we're happy to go. Here we can say, is resetting true? So we are resetting at this point. We kind of want to stop any more player interaction and restore it at this point. Okay, I think that kind of lines up. That's starting to make some sense there. So what might we want to do next? We can test it in a sec. I just want to kind of make sure I've got all that lined up properly. So we're going to drop the gear. That works fine. We know that. Reset the crane. We run a schedule. We are resetting. We're going to wait. What might be good here is actually restoring these to 0, just in case anything was like kind of left over, because we want it to be kind of that still. So actually, let's do that here. So we are resetting, and let's kind of override any previous input. Let's have a look. Let's see what. Okay, so my crane's reset over there. Probably speed it up a bit. The drop. Oh, and after a second, it's going to vanish. Okay, exit the machine, and it has gone. Okay, interesting. What might have happened there? Do I have an error? No errors. That's probably to do with. Well, no, actually, because regardless of how I've calculated the time, let's just output the time anyway, just to be safe. But it should have still ended up at the same start point. Time to reset. I wonder if it's fighting with the on tick. That's doing something. ZK says, "Oh hey, is the game jam over yet? I'll still submit." Absolutely, you can still submit. The game jam started. What day is it? Tuesday. It started yesterday morning, and it's actually running for the entire 7 days ahead. So it's kind of the entries will be closing. I think it's midnight PST Sunday night. So yeah, you got plenty of time. Absolutely, still able to submit. Submissions will be through the forum. So there's a forum kind of example post I've made under game releases, which is essentially just a little form you fill out. You say kind of what the game is, who's made it, any kind of contributors that have worked with you. Add a share link and a description, any thumbnails, images, videos. I think you could do videos, anything like that to kind of sell the game a bit. And then what we'll do, and also obviously make sure you tag that with the gearing up tag. And then what we'll do is we'll take that and we will kind of build up our little hub space that we've made. So our Game Jam hub that will be accessible hopefully through the hub at some point, and then you'll be able to go through there into like a second Game Jam hub and preview and play all the games through the portals that are available in there. And what we might do, actually, a good thought at some point, is create a little portal for you that takes you back to that space that you can add to your games if you want. So I'll make sure to add that. yeah, probably first thing tomorrow, I'll make a note. So there'll be a package available on the store at some point, which will be a portal you can use to get back to this hub space, which is quite a nice way to kind of close that loop and keep people in the game jam space. If you have any questions, obviously, make sure you head over to Discord and ask in the Game Jam channel. There's quite a lot of people in there who have done several game jams at this point who can answer a lot of questions, and if not, members of staff are over there as well to do what they can to answer. So that's discord.gg/Crayta, and as I say, dedicated game jam channel specifically for all this sort of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to ignore this. So if self dot is resetting, again, if not, I only really want it to try and do any sort of movement on tick if we're not resetting. That might help. Try again. A bit weird that it just vanished. So I'm saying it should take 288 seconds. Okay. I think that should be timed, shouldn't it? Yeah. Makes more sense. Just going to try something here, just check the position. So if I do self.properties brain entity set position, I'm literally just going to say go back to where you started without any sort of motion to it, just go there. Okay, so that worked. We saw it sort of snap back. Let's increase the speed. Yeah, let's increase the speed. So I think at the minute it's just 1. Let's make that like 50, so it's going to move a bit quicker. In theory it should. A bit quicker, but yeah, probably needs to be a much higher number. Interesting. Okay, still can't move. Ah, that's because of the weight. I think, yeah, I've got something wrong with that time calculation. Let's just end for now. Three seconds, and then I should be able to move again after 3 seconds. This is the joy of live game dev. There's always going to be little issues. Feel free to shout out if you see I've done something horribly obviously wrong. Okay, dropping a cog. Okay, and I can move again after 3 seconds. That's good. Okay, so here's the game, essentially. I would have to try and guess. The shadow kind of helps, actually, but it is offset. Oh, miles off. Okay, try again. This is pretty difficult. These are pretty small cogs. That's way too far right. Oh, good bounce. Not a very high tower though. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this kind of complexity for now, and I'm actually going to just reduce that second. I'm going to reduce the complexity again, kind of game jam rules. Let's just get something working, and I want to get into the next logic, which is kind of working out how high the tower is. Now the kind of most crude method would kind of just be recording which cog gets highest in the world. I can't really think of a better way. We're going to obviously need to wait before checking. It's going to, because obviously it starts high and then gets dropped, so we kind of need to wait for it to either settle. Maybe that's the way. It's like once its position hasn't updated by a certain amount after say 3 seconds, we can assume it's landed somewhere and it's stayed relatively still. You know, if it hasn't moved by 10 centimeters or something like that, it's settled. It must be up high, and then that's where we kind of record the user score from. I think I'm gonna go for that sort of method, which makes me think, is that going to be a script on the cog itself? Probably. Yeah, I think that's going to need to be one on the cog itself. Let's just up the speed of this again. Go like 500. Is that going to help? Still goes kind of slow. That number's not making any difference. Okay. So let's have a look at doing this then. So we want probably a script on this itself. I'll call it the gear script. Now, what does this need? It probably just on a init. So once it's made, I'm going to start probably a countdown, and then after 3 seconds, say, once it's had plenty of time to fall, it's going to start checking for once it's settled. Or I could start checking for once it's settled. Right, no, because it's going to be initted on that. So probably, yeah, we need a once dropped kind of function here. If anyone has any ideas for, you know, things to add to this game or kind of ways it works, then yeah, do let us know. See Flush Death just put, could you have a trigger area on the cog and a kickoff, and kick off the timer once the trigger hits area hits? I'll read today. Or if you set the timer to 0, you'd figure out what the tallest tower without settling. You could have a trigger area on the cog and kick off the timer once the trigger area hits. Or if you set the timer to 0, you'd figure out what the tallest tower without settling. Yeah, I think there's lots of ways to do this. I mean, I was thinking about ways of kind of ensuring it's a tower by recording the first one you put, and then almost like every subsequent one checking the distance between the two. But then obviously the tower could fall and you've still got a distance. It would, I guess, just the Z difference between the two would be one way to do it. But then what if you start a second tower? You know, one tower falls, you want to start another one. We're going to need to think about how to clear this up. You know, could it kind of need a fall detection script, something that knows that the tower's fallen over, and you know, and kind of remove it. Yeah, again, game jam rules. Let's get something working, and we can start to work out all these little edge cases and the little nuances that come with it. So gear script. What do I want to do here? Let's say on gear dropped. Okay, so again, we're going to run a schedule here, so we're probably going to want to do some kind of weighting maths before we do stuff here. So, okay, so once I'm dropped, we're going to want to do a loop. Probably always while true do. I know, because once we've settled, we need to stop this, don't we? Could you have a requirement that you're allowed to have a single tower, and that then the only the first cog is allowed to hit the ground? That's true, actually. Yeah. So if any subsequent cog makes contact with the area, the voxel mesh, then I can assume you're falling and delete everything. That could be a pretty good way of doing it. So I think that's a pretty good way of doing the clear up. Yeah. So perhaps I can kind of keep a reference to all of the entities. Yeah. Each time I drop a gear, I can kind of remember which one. Which cog it kind of belongs to, which dropper it belongs to. Keep them in a table. And then if they hit anything but the first one hits the area, then delete them all. With that, you could assume that every cog is on top of each other, and you could use the Z-axis for the last one. Yeah, I think you might be right there. Should we have a think about that? I'm going to keep this script just in case. I'm going to comment. I don't know. This function won't get called anyway, so let's just put a wait in here just in case I do. In fact, let's just remove it to be safe. But yeah, so if we want to do settling here, but actually, yeah, slush death, that's a pretty good way of doing it. So I've got the gear entity, so I'm only actually remembering one thing at a time here. When I drop a gear, instead of just nilling it, I need to almost know which one was the first one and add the rest to a table. Oh, this is an interesting game design thought. So, okay, let's start fleshing out a bit. So, the crane control script can know self dot first gear. What we can do here then is have an event on gear created of type event. Okay, and this is how we can kind of then report back when we've created a new gear. So on gear created end. Okay, and we're going to actually send the gear entity through this event. So that's one way that we can kind of reach back to the crane control script. Start there. Create new gear is first gear. So here that's true, because on the init we're just going to spawn the first one. Yeah, do you need the intermediary cogs, or could you only keep a reference to the first cog, last cog assumed settled, and current cog? Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? I need the first one and the last and the latest one to know the distance, and then once any of the cogs collide, any other cogs collide with the mat, I can kind of remove all of those except the first one, and then you can kind of keep starting your tower. So it's almost like once you've placed your first one, that's your position for the whole thing. And then maybe I can have a control to clear your first one or something. So create new gear. We kind of want to pass through here is first gear as well. What else do we call create new gear? So I want to pass false here, because any time that this function's calling it, we know that it's not the first gear. on gear created. Gear entity is first gear. Okay, I think this is starting to make some sense here. So last gear. Oh, Bill. Okay, so I've got my two gear references I want to keep. If is first gear. Oops. Okay, and then at this point I want to wait. Kind of assume it needs to drop, maybe wait 5 seconds before calculating the height. Okay, so the first gear position will be first gear position. So cool. The tower height would be our last gear pos.z minus the first gear pos.z. Does that sound right? Yeah, also that's another good suggestion there. So could you use the time for the crane to move back to the start as the settle time? That could be whatever this wait is before we calculate the distance. At the minute, that's just a random number, but yeah, we could bind those in a second, kind of with a kind of the property that works. So tower height. So let's see for now if we just print tower height equals. Okay, so when we create a gear, if it's the first one, we just capture that and then nothing else happens. If it's the last one that we dropped, then we're going to wait. Say for now, let's just wait that same. Probably up it actually to like 3 seconds. Then we calculate the distance between the two. I'm going to print that for now, and then what we would do is kind of pass that to the user, and the user can determine, is that a new record? Is that kind of leaderboard worthy? Probably display it on screen somewhere, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's pretty good. I think what I need to do now is set that event up. So on gear created. Created. Okay, so we're going to call that event, and with that we're going to learn the entity and whether it was the first one or not. So here, I guess, this is where we need to work out as the tower fallen over on. This will be on collision. What did we collide with? So we can check here. We can say area entity type entity. Ah, wait, so these gears are going to be spawned at runtime, so we can't know which area, we have to be told which area. Assign area entity. Okay, right, yes, I was right, actually. We could have area entity of type entity, but it can be not editable. So we don't actually specify this in the editor, but at runtime we will say that this is the area you belong to. Okay, and then if the entity we hit is equal to our area entity, then for now, I guess let's just straightforward, let's just destroy the entity. So this means that we've got a chance our gears are going to be destroyed, which means that we need to check here. Oh, firstly, is it the first? If it's the first gear, we just maybe don't assign an area, and then it will never know what will destroy it. Kind of a cheap way of doing that. This knows the area, does it? If not, it can do. So, first gear, we just go ahead as normal. If it's the last gear, and to script assign area. The area entity. So we're going to pass that voxel mesh through, so the gear knows this is what's going to destroy you if you touch it. Obviously, not doing that to the first one means it can't be destroyed, which keeps it a bit safer, and then perhaps we will add some logic, as I say, to kind of delete your first one if you want. So what do we need next? I need to actually check here. So after this wait, there's a chance that that last gear to be dropped has been destroyed. So check last gear is still valid. So if self.last gear and self.last gear is valid, so if it's been destroyed, then we don't want to do any of this, and we're kind of then back to square one. You know, we're going to, yeah, that makes sense. Yep, looks like I just had a bit of a frame drop there. Hopefully the stream came through not too bad then. But essentially what we've done there is hopefully kind of got that tower fall logic in there. So again, nice suggestion there, Slush Death. I think this is going to be a nice kind of easy way hopefully to kind of handle all this stuff. To reset time. Right, there's a whole bunch of logic there. I'm sure some of it's going to break, but let's have a look to see what we've got. And move right. Okay, and then we cancel that by going down and left. Drop. Tower height 732. Okay, so that's probably too quick. I think I was calculating that height before I'd actually hit the ground. Although, wait, that doesn't make sense. Why did the first one I drop? Okay, let's think this through. I think I've got some script up there, because the first one I dropped told me the tower height, when obviously that should have only happened here if it was valid and it was the last gear. Always good to get plenty of prints in. Okay, so when I create new gear, I'm saying this is true. So we're going to tell the event that's the first one, yep. And then any subsequent one could come through as false from here. Okay, just see what those prints say. Okay, so it is first gear. It's already right. Moving right. Drop. Ah, wait, yeah. I'm calculating it when it's spawned. Okay, created. Of course, yeah. I'm creating a gear and then I'm instantly saying, now check. Actually, it's when I drop. Gear created. It's when I drop a gear. I need to wait 3 seconds. Okay. So So here, when I drop a gear, I'm going to tell the gear to drop. And this is where I need to do my wait. Then reset. I've still got that reference to that last gear. And if I add this up here, I'm going to wait 3 seconds. I'm going to check, wait 3 seconds, check for the gear, check the height. Then I'm going to tell the crane to reset. So I know that it hasn't spawned a new one yet. That might be the way to go about this. Hey Boop. Hello nerds. Always nice. Okay. I think we're getting somewhere. Yeah, that's right. So I wasn't expecting anything to calculate then. But now what I've just spawned is the last gear essentially. So when I drop this, I should drop it, probably wait 3 seconds. Tower height 13, that seemed a bit better. Although it did bounce and it didn't get destroyed when it touched the side. So we'll have a look at that in a sec. The really bouncy gears. Okay. That seemed to make sense. So it did stand up weirdly, but obviously that gave it a bit more height. So the first one was 13, the second one was 16 because they kind of both hit and bounce. The second one that is a bit taller is sitting at 42, so 42 centimeters. I think that feels about right. I think that seems to work. So let's assume that's all working now. What was next? Why weren't they deleting was the next thing. So let's see about printing here. Self-destroy isn't going to do anything. Get entity destroy is what I want. That's probably the issue. Let's just throw a print in here to check. Destroying gear. Okay, maybe not. So it never set the area. So this didn't get called. Assign area entity. Maybe I just got rid of that line that did that actually. Where was the line? Here, assign area entity. There we go. Again. Okay, so the first one shouldn't be destroyed because it is it doesn't get an area assigned. The second one, let's just throw it way off. Hasn't been destroyed either. Hour height minus huge number. Interesting. Minus 24. Okay, that makes sense actually. That's solid maths because one's off the voxels and the voxels are 25 centimeters high. So that second one fell and was minus 24.999. So it's pretty much exactly one voxel lower. So the math checks out. Why are these not destroyed? On gear created. Enter scripts, assign area entity. Strange. So can't quite see why that's not getting called. We're definitely here because we're seeing this last gear call, right? Gear. Oh, we are seeing it. Gear sign area entity. Okay, so it's the collision that's not picking up then. Is the source of the area entity set on the main script, by the way? Yeah, it is. So for some reason this isn't coming through. So okay, next one to check. Area entities equal to get name. We want to do the same here to sort of see what it is that we're actually getting through. When we collide. Got our drop. Entity area is called crane area, so we've assigned the right entity, and then when I collide, we would not. Oh, I think I've done. Oh, I think I've turned. Oh, I haven't turned collision off. So collision is enabled on the gears, but it's not. Maybe this is a physics thing. Maybe on collision isn't called once physics is enabled. Oh, that could be. That could be interesting. Okay, well, let's not worry too much about the cleanup of that for now. That's something I might investigate tomorrow, just in case that is something that I have overlooked there. Yeah, I'm wondering whether on collision isn't called once something has physics enabled because it behaves slightly differently as an entity. If that's true, I'm guessing I could do a trigger box perhaps. So if it falls off into a trigger box, then it gets destroyed. Yeah, that might be the way to do that. Hey, Victorious. Okay, cool. So, what do I want to do now? What time are we at? 8:10. So we've got about half an hour or so left. I guess let's work on the stuff reporting to the player, perhaps, you know, their record and things like that. So this is a new function here, so this will be score. Let's use for script. Okay, cool. So, what we're going to have here, probably going to have a leaderboard. So let's throw in a leaderboard name. That's a type string. What do we want to do on a init? So we don't necessarily need to save the high score because we can just use the leaderboard for that. So perhaps what we need is a function here for check score, and then pass in the current score. Okay, get leaderboard value still needs the callback. Okay, so what we'd do first is we would say self get entity, get leaderboard value. Our leaderboard ID is going to come from that leaderboard name. And our callback, I think it just gives you the score and the rank. Check. We can see there, yeah. Callback function parameters are score and rank. So you register the Game Jam maps on the forum. So that's if you head over to forum, Crayta.forum, something like that. I'll maybe at the end of the stream I'll have a quick show everybody where it is you need to go, just to kind of make it super clear. So yeah, if you stick around to the end of the stream, I'll kind of showcase where it is you need to be for the submission. If you tune in tomorrow, sorry, not tomorrow, Thursday. So on Thursday, we should be streaming on Thursday, and hopefully I'll be wrapping up our submission there. And I'll go through all again on that as well. So if you do, make sure you tune in on Thursday morning if you're available. That's another good way to kind of keep up with how it's all going to work. Okay, so we get the score and the rank. So we can say if score is, if current score is greater than score, then. Okay, so if our current score is greater than that, then we have new high score. Otherwise, we can probably just ignore it, because we're going to perhaps always already show that to the user. Yeah, okay. So we're going to want some client side or local stuff here, which is going to have the score displayed on screen. So update score UI. That's going to take the high score. Okay, so we would get a reference to a widget here. So this would be our, and we'll probably call this something like the score UI. And here we would have self.widget.data.score equals high score, something like that. We can go and create the widget in a minute and make sure it all links up with this. So on init, we would want to we'd do this kind of same thing here, but actually, instead of checking, we're not going to have a score to check against. We just want to know what their current high score on the leaderboard is and update the local client. Probably show the rank as well, actually. That makes sense, right? They can always see on screen what their rank is. So their current score and rank is what we've put on the screen, and then also we want to do a update of the leaderboard. Okay, so that should kind of do all of our saving of the high score and all that sort of stuff pretty straightforward. Update score here. So what we need to do next is let's add our widget. I'm going to call it score UI to match what we called it down here. Okay, so we probably just want this to be at, like, say, middle top, something like that. Clear this down a little bit. Okay, so position is going to be, so 1 view height from the top, 50 from the side. We only want to translate back on the X. That gets that kind of pushed up to the top. Adding. Okay, and then our content is essentially just going to be our score. So this, again, all kind of the top end of Crayta. It's a little bit more the complex side of things, but if anyone watching is interested in kind of a bit more of a UI deep dive masterclass, kind of server versus local versus client, all that sort of stuff, and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, like, I'm more than happy to run that sort of thing as a stream. So do let us know on Discord or in chat here now if it's the sort of thing you'd like to see. As I say, a deeper dive into that stuff. We can break it down and kind of really hopefully start to explain a little bit more detail how it all kind of comes together. So our data is going to be, we already know that's going to be our score. So we'll put -1 for now, and our rank is also -1. So data.score. And rank. So when I save that, it's right at the top of the screen. It's hard to see there, but it is kind of just a -1 there. So let's make this font size a bit bigger to make it clear. Okay, we've got two, -1, -1. It's worth stating as well, I always say this, but I am no UI master, so a lot of what I do is very kind of hacky, throwing together stuff. Doesn't always look great, but does the trick. Okay. In fact, if we do this slightly differently, so we'll do it as a string, so score -1 rank. Probably swap those round, make them a bit smaller. Okay, there we go. That looks kind of what I'm after. So we need to pass through text here. So let's go back to our core UI does the script and define a couple of text properties here. So core message of type text. And the rank method also of type text. Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of things in here that are in curly braces, and that allows us to format the message with the correct values. And by using this text, it actually allows us to, if we wanted to, we could translate this to various languages. So it is worth kind of maybe spending the time sometimes to just go through that and get it as, you know, you get them as accessible as possible. And then because you've done it as a text and you're doing it this way, the system will handle translating that for you to the specific client's local language, which is a really nice touch. So how would we do this? Score needs the rank. Well, okay, so the score is going to be our self.properties score message, and that's going to be formatted. So format with the table, and score is going to equal the high score. Okay, I'm going to do the same again underneath with the rank. And the rank message is going to be rank equal to rank. So whatever the rank comes through, we're going to replace the curly brace rank, and same with the score. So on init, we're going to get the high score as it currently is and update it. And when we check score, so check score is something we need to do on the user. And we should be able to do that from here because we know the owner of the control mechanism. So when we calculate tau height, we can say self.properties owner enter scripts check score, and what that needs to know is the current score. So that's going to be our tower height. Okay, it's all coming together nicely. So what do we need to do now? We need to create our leaderboard. So our leaderboard is going to be tower height, player name, tallest tower, high is better, it's not going to reset, or is number, and we'll leave that as public. Let's get our ID. Let's check that in here. Okay, if you are using leaderboards in your game, there's a package in the community tab which is a really good one for quickly seeing the sort of output all the time. So that is, if you just search leader, it should come up. So leaderboard 3D, and that's a Crayta package. Obviously all the APIs there for you to write your own, but again, in a game jam, it's always nice to lean on existing packages where possible. So we just pull one of these in. There. Okay, and the only thing you need to do is go on the screen and put the same ID in as the leaderboard there, and then that should handle everything you need it to. error there. Okay. That's probably because I haven't got a score returning, which is why they're saying is -1. But let's just see. Okay, drop a gear. First gear. Thinking I might need to make these bigger gears. Okay. So no. Ooh, bouncy gears. Okay, might need to make them a bit heavy to stop that bounce. Let's see what went wrong with that. Let's just check to see if we're ever getting those set. Okay, so I got my init. Looks like there's an error in the script, which might not be helping in the widget. But yeah, so I got that first one. The init came back as 0 -1, which is telling me that the score is 0 with a rank of -1. -1 being I don't have a rank, so that makes sense. I think because there's an error in the widget, that was why it wasn't happy. So looks like it's an error down here. Don't need any of this anyway, so let's just delete that. That helps. Okay, let's check why that's not been through. So again, let's throw a print in here. Because the server's anything before. I need to do this on the server, I believe. I don't think you can do this on the client. What I could try and do here is check. So while self entity is local ready, I think I can do. When called on an entity that is owned by a particular client, this sees if that entity has been init on that client by calling local init. So I don't think I can call that from the server, so that's not going to work. Okay. Game jam growth time. Let's do the schedule. Probably a much nice way to do this, but it's too late in the day for me to think of it. So let's just do let's just wait for a second. Let the local client init properly. Then do it. Just see if that helps. See if that proves the theory anyway. Okay, so I've got my update. Okay, so that worked that time. So I can see that it did wait. Even though they came back in the wrong order in the console, I know that it's done it in the right way. Update score UI was correct, but my screen hasn't updated. Why might that be? Data, score, rank. Maybe I don't. You don't need the JS anymore. Does that make a difference? Okay, well, if this doesn't work this time, I might just abandon that one for now. Again, don't want to get too bogged down in that. I want to see what that prints. Okay, so it has found it, but it's not updating. Okay, I must be doing something wrong. Never mind. Let's leave that for now. Let's see if once I've registered any sort of score, I should be getting this check score come through, and therefore I should be landing something on this leaderboard. Okay, miles off. Okay, but I got a score of a rather big number. Again, need to work out why it does that. Oh, nailed it. Okay, so that should be, yeah, 25 centimeters. I need to look at where the shadow goes to know where to go next time. Ooh, bounced. Okay, so if I quit the machine. Okay, so tallest tower is me. Probably. Yeah, I need to format that number a bit nicer. For now we can see that, yep, I've got the tallest tower of 25 centimeters, which, you know, is what it is. If I can kick them around. Probably stop players from entering this entering this area. Probably make more sense. Okay, so that's updating there. It's just not updating on the screen. I think the big numbers are just scientific notation. Yeah, they're rather, yeah, because they're negative, whatever. So they are pretty small numbers. I'm not sure why it's going to that sort of length of, you know. It needs to be, obviously, but I'd imagine it'd be much smaller number. Maybe, what if I just floored it and I kept it as whole numbers? Kind of, you know, when you're not going to care about fractions of a centimeter. So, in this control script, if I was to put in this one, when I calculate the tower height. Find tower height. If I do a math.floor on this number, that should kind of keep it to a whole number. This is pretty difficult. Tower height -1 time. Okay. Bounced. Gosh. Okay. See if I can get another one on that. I guess you could start to make a pile actually, without. Maybe them not deleting isn't a bad thing. Tower height 18. Although, yeah, maybe it's like not so much about individual towers, but it's just like the last yeah. The last one you dropped, how high was it? So it still makes sense even if you don't remove them. That was another bounce. Okay, I need to make them a bit heavier, I think. I'm going to see if that changes the way they behave. Make them like 5 times heavier and just see how that behaves. Still quite a bit of bounce. Yeah, that was better. I've watched where the shadow goes this time as well, so I can kind of roughly track right point. Oh, that was okay. That was close. Definitely something in here. So a few little issues, but we've managed to, you know, in that kind of hour and a half, we've really managed to kind of tighten down those mechanics a bit more. You know, we've kind of got a game loop here. It's just going to take a bit more time now to work, but this is the kind of thing you need to be doing with your game jam submissions. So it's the sooner you can get to the whole game loop and having something that works, the sooner you can start to test the theory. So as I say, highly recommend kind of if you have got something that's working, trying to get to a point as soon as you can where you start having something you can test. And then, as I say, tomorrow we're going to have that preview session sort of play along. So what I'll do now is I'll quickly just I'll load up the forum because there's been a few questions about that. So just bear with me 1 second. I'll fire that up. But yeah, so we're going to do all of the submissions and everything internally again. It's just a nice way of approaching this. So rather than it being through itch, like we've done in the past, we're going to go through and do it, you know, kind of all in house. So we're going to have our own hub. We're going to have our own kind of submission system. So if you were to go into the game, so this is the forum. If you look, check. So it's forum.crayta.com. So forum.crayta.com is a really good place actually to find out information about the game. You've got all the package guides, got the patch notes. There's all sorts of stuff you can do here. You can report bugs, things like that. So what we do have is this game releases channel. So the game releases channel is where we want you to submit your games. So when you get to here, what you will do is you can see I've got an example up at the top here called Gearing Up Game Jam Example Submission. So you can go on this. Okay, you could copy and paste this and enter it as your own submission. So to say what we're looking for here is a game name, the contributors, so that's obviously yourself and anyone who's helped you work on it, the share link to the game. So once you've published, we want to get the share link from the game, and then a description which can contain text, images, you know, whatever you need to kind of describe the game. Perhaps a little description of how it fits to gearing up as well might be quite nice. And then you submit that just kind of by kind of sending it through, making sure that when you do it, if I'll edit this. This is the sort of form you'll get. Okay, so you'll kind of fill out this side. Just here, you'll see there's an option to add tags, and you should find a gearing up tag is one of them. So if you could just apply the gearing up tag, that helps us kind of find the ones specifically for the game jam, and that's how you're going to do your submissions. Don't worry if you fill this in and then do more publishing and want to update it. You can update your submission as much as you want. Just make sure that by the deadline you've got your game published and your submission filled out, and then once submissions have closed, once we've hit that point, then no more updates until voting is closed. And as I say, voting is all going to happen in game. There'll be more details about that. Perhaps on Thursday I can showcase a bit more of the space. And as I said, I'll work on getting a kind of a little portal that you can add to your games to get you back to that space. And yeah, it should be quite a nice little kind of internal way to moderate it all. So I'm going to call it a day there. I think, as I say, I've got to a pretty good point there where the game kind of has all the little bits and pieces. It's just going to take a lot more kind of itty bitty refining of stuff, and you know, we could be here all night just watching me scratch my head at code. So I think that's a good point to stop. And obviously we'll try and do a bit more decoration and kind of really make the best use of all those Mechanical Revolution assets. So thank you everybody for joining in. So it's been a pretty fun, quiet stream by myself, but yeah, always nice to get in and do some dev work. I saw a few people helping. Obviously, Slush Death, thank you kind of all your suggestions. I think that's been super helpful. So if you haven't already, if you're here for the first time, do make sure you follow us on Twitch and subscribe to us on YouTube. Really great places to keep up with all the live content we do, tutorials, highlights, all that sort of stuff. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Crayta Game on both of those platforms. Again, great places to keep up with all the latest news and what's going on in Crayta. And also follow us, join our Discord server. The best place to kind of keep in touch with the community and all of us members of staff. So we're pretty active over there, doing what we can. And yeah, just kind of hanging out, having a good time. We've got all the off-topic channels to chat about nonsense, as well as all the help channels and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, discord.gg/Crayta. So I hope everyone's having a fun game jam. So I always enjoy when we're running these events, and I can't wait to see kind of how much hard work everyone's put into their stuff. Sneak Peeks is a really great channel on Discord. There's some really cool stuff coming through on there, so can't wait to see how it all works out. But yeah, have a great game jam, everybody, and make sure you tune in tomorrow when AJ is back playing some games. And do let us know on Discord if you have something that you'd like us to test. We're more than happy to get some plays in there and give you some feedback mid-game jam with plenty of time left to make some changes. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.